Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This evening, we're going to speak about thrills, because what we're doing here is the most thrilling activity. For something to be truly thrilling, it's got to touch the deepest core of you. As you know, in material life, cheap thrills abound. And often we settle for those cheap thrills because we think there's nothing better. What can you do? Perhaps some of you have heard me explain before about the resignation theory. That, hey, I didn't make the world the way it is. What do you want out of me? Yeah. What can I do if it doesn't get any better than the way things are? I'm just trying to make the best of what's out there and what's in me. Come on, Swami, get off my case. You know? We're just trying to muddle our way through, get whatever happiness is out there, you know. Try not to hurt so many people. It's inevitably going to step on someone's toes, but, you know, that's the way it is. And remember, I didn't make the world like this. It's not my fault, innocent bystander, or person with limited ability to influence the situations. Therefore, we settle for less. Whereas in Bhagavad Gita, the prime bhakti yoga text, Krishna is urging us to go for the highest, not simply for rewards in the next life, but if you're going for the highest, you get the highest rewards now as well as later. Now you might say, why wouldn't everyone accept such a deal? Well, it's all about conceptions of pleasure. To be a serious pursuer of pleasure, we need knowledge. We may think that pursuing happiness and pleasure doesn't require any qualification. Originally, that is true. When I say originally, I'm referring to our original pure spiritual existence. But as Krishna will explain in Bhagavad Gita, the problem is we have forgotten our original existence as spiritual entities, and we are absorbed in a material body, mind, and material existence. Therefore, we require re-education as to what is pleasure. Now, this may sound a bit strange because generally, we like to feel that we know what pleasure is. We know what enjoyment is. The problem is that the world is not giving us enough of what we know is the good stuff. We know it's out there. There's no doubt about that. But some or other, we're not connecting with it, although everyone else is connecting with it. So just think the role that society plays in our life's quest. Just think of how our conceptions of what is pleasure, what is happiness, have been shaped so much by what's around us. Social psychologists call this the reality of social comparison. You have to look around and check out what everyone else has and then compare what you have to that. You may fight it. No, I'm an individual. I'm unique. I don't follow the crowd. But if we're honest, we're so swayed. We're so influenced. I like to call it mass consensual trance. That millions of people, why millions? Billions of people put themselves into a kind of trance in which each one agrees, I won't question too deeply. Let's just live on the surface, because actually the surface is basically all that's there. And who knows? While you may sometimes try to go deeper, you could be missing out on the cheap thrills. Cheap thrills are cheap, but they're something, right? So while you're going for broke, searching for the ultimate, you can be missing out on the quick thrills that are all around. The bhakti yogi, the Krishna conscious person, knows a thorough education in what is real pleasure. Why? How could that be? It's because Krishna is the supreme pleasure. Generally, when we think of the ultimate, when we think of God, the supreme reality, we think of someone who creates, who made the mountains, who made the seas, somebody bigger than you and me. That's nice. Come on, don't lie. I sang this in Sunday school, and it's true. That is preliminary knowledge of God as the creator. And then there is knowledge of God as the maintainer. We want sustenance. We want food. We want the daily bread and more. And we expect that if there's a God, he should provide. And thirdly, there's always the fear that sometimes we have. God the punisher, the destroyer. We may be taught we're sinners in the hand of an angry God. What is beyond knowledge of the Supreme as the creator, the maintainer, and the destroyer? This is the wonder of the bhakti knowledge. You see, anything has various levels of understanding. It's not that preliminary levels of understanding or introductory levels of understanding are wrong. But you can always go deeper and deeper. And that is what Krishna in Bhagavad Gita is beckoning us for. Come deeper, because the deeper our knowledge of God, the deeper our love can be. How can that be so? Because love is based on attraction. When we come to understand how unlimitedly attractive Krishna is, naturally, our love will increase exponentially. Sometimes people say that God is love. These days you wonder, first of all, do people know what is God? And second of all, do they know what is love? But anyway, it sounds nice to say, yes, God is love. Yeah. But the bhakti yogis, the Krishna conscious persons, the devotees of Krishna know that when you say God is love, you actually mean God is unlimitedly attractive. Because how can there be love without attraction? So what is it that's attractive about the Supreme? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is referred to by the Sanskrit term Bhagavan, the possessor of all opulence. And indeed, Bhagavad Gita means the song of the Supreme Opulent One. It is opulence that attracts us. Just a little bit of opulence we see in this temporary material existence, in our temporary material bodies and minds. There's a little bit of beauty, a little bit of wealth, a little bit of strength, a little bit of knowledge. Even sometimes you see bits of renunciation, detachment, exhibited by various persons striving to do welfare work. And then there's fame. We're attracted to that. So the bhakti teachers, the bhakti professors, the acharyas, have analyzed all the possible attractions as mainly 6, the ones I just mentioned. So we all know how you'll see little bits of attractiveness here and there. When we want to love, that means we want to be attracted to those opulences. We see little bits in someone, a little bit of beauty, a little bit of wealth, a little bit of strength. But what is the ultimate source of all those 6 opulences that I mentioned? Therefore, the Sanskrit terminology for Krishna is Shadaishvarya Purna. Krishna is unlimitedly, infinitely deep in all of those 6 opulences. Therefore, our founder, Srila Prabhupada, has confidently, based on the topmost knowledge, asserted that anyone who actually knows what is God will accept Krishna. So here is the qualifying point. Anyone who actually knows. If you understand what are the qualifications for the position, then you'll recognize who fills that position. Just like anyone who knows what is a salesperson or what is an engineer, when they see one, they'll recognize it. So what are the qualifications to be the ultimate source? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains himself. This is what I am. This is how you can recognize me. This is how you can come to me. In this way, Krishna gives us knowledge of God beyond the creator, beyond the maintainer, beyond the destroyer. And here comes the problem. Because what is beyond knowledge of God as the creator, maintainer, and destroyer? It's something we have a very difficult time attributing to God. Yet, it is the foremost reality in the bhakti texts, in the Krishna conscious literature. The foremost reality is God as the supreme enjoyer. You can practically feel the resistance rising up in you. That's the last thing God should be doing. And it's the first thing we should be doing. And we've got a problem with this so-called supreme enjoyer. How come we're not enjoying? If Krishna is always enjoying, what about us? Therefore, we feel resentment. If you do a Google search, what are the most popular questions about God? These days, everyone goes to Google for everything because that's where you can make your confidential inquiries. You don't ask your priest, your rabbi, your local Swami. You don't even ask your husband, wife, or partner. You ask Google. So what is the most popular question about God? It occurs mainly from the Bible Belt, but still it's number 1 in all the states of the USA. Number 1 question about God, according to Google, based on yearly tabulations, is who created God? In other words, how can there be something that's not created? Now, in the Bhakti text, of course, our greatest professor, Lord Brahma, what does he say? Anadi Adya Govinda Sarva Karna Karna. That Sanskrit means that the qualification of the Supreme is that he has no beginning. There's no cause prior to Krishna. Krishna is the cause of all causes. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha. The Supreme Controller is Krishna, and what is the nature of Krishna's form? Not a material body, not an old man, but a body composed of eternity, knowledge, and unending bliss. So we look at our body, what's it composed of? Naturally, then, we think, anytime some entity has a body, it must be like our body. You never see pictures of Krishna as an old man. Why? You always see Krishna as a teenager at the peak of youth. Why? Because Krishna knows how to enjoy. He is a teenager with unlimited knowledge. And think about your teenage years. Don't talk about it, but unlimited mistakes, unlimited, anyway, so we're shocked to find out that the Supreme is the supreme enjoyer. We thought that we should feel sorry for God. What do you do, God? I mean, you work hard creating, you have to maintain the living entities, and you destroy. Meanwhile, sometimes we have a good time down here, right, on earth, right? We have parties, we have sports, we have get-togethers with family and friends. Poor God is all alone. He just listens to hymns. He listens to official prayers. But we have, sometimes we have good times. We got to work hard for them. But sometimes it's nice being around family and friends when everyone gets along for a few moments. It's nice. So it's shocking for us to find out knowledge of the Supreme as the supreme enjoyer. This is what immediately attracted me when I started learning about Krishna. I wasn't interested in just another theology, another religious belief or conceptions. But when I heard that there is knowledge of Krishna as the supreme enjoyer, I said, this is something that has to be investigated. And especially when I heard that as the supreme enjoyer, Krishna is inviting us to share his enjoyment if we would simply cooperate. That sounded like a great deal to me. But we have this problem of envy. Why should Krishna be the supreme enjoyer? What about me? I'll never forget, during my days upon graduation from university, I was starting to study the Bhakti texts, and I read that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. So I called over one of my friends, and I thought she would be impressed by this. So I said, check this out, take a look at this. She took the book, read, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, slammed the book shut. Like, that's our job. How dare someone take our position? I appreciated her honesty because I could recognize, even in those beginning days, that this is the darkness that's afflicting my own heart. I'm trying to compete with Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, at the end, Krishna makes his offer to everyone. It's an offer for complete happiness. Krishna says, you surrender to me. That means you give up your plan making, take my plan, and I'll protect you from your countless bad karmic reactions accumulated for so many births. I'll take care of that, you don't worry. This is Krishna's offer for us to be happy. But we may feel a bit intimidated by that. Shut down my plan-making factory? Everyone knows how successful I've been. Everyone knows that I'm always happy. It takes some real humility and honesty to accept Krishna's offer. By accepting Krishna's offer, we acknowledge that there is a supreme expert in pleasure. Who would ever think that is God, the supreme expert in pleasure? Right? It's the last thing you'd think of. Yet, if you say the supreme is the source of everything, then why not the source of unlimited pleasure? So how is God the source of unlimited pleasure? That we need to hear from Krishna himself, because Krishna is willing to share his enjoyment. So the goal of Bhakti Yoga is to become qualified to participate in Krishna's pleasure. There's competition between Krishna and his devotee. The devotee wants Krishna to enjoy. Krishna wants the devotee to enjoy. The competition goes on eternally, unlimitedly. So I mentioned, what is the most popular question on Google about God? Number one is, who created God? Number two, the usual. If God is good, then what? Why are we suffering? It's the blame game. Okay, God is all good. God is all great. But why then are we having hard times? Why is there misery? Why are there catastrophes, terrorism, genocide? On and on it goes. Bhakti Yoga requires an honest, humble look at ourselves. Why are we the way we are? Why are we suffering? This is the question Krishna asks in Bhagavad Gita. Why are you unnecessarily going through all this? Why don't you listen to me? Take my offer. But instead we respond, okay, if you're so great, why are we suffering? It's on you. This doesn't work. Especially when we're given such knowledge of the Supreme. Sometimes people don't accept that there can be knowledge of the Supreme. They want spiritual matters to remain always a question. As soon as they're definitive answers, that means it's not spiritual. Spiritual means question after question eternally, never the answer. We're supposed to always be in doubt. Because if you say you know for sure, then you're being ingenuine. Because no one can know for sure. That's one thing we can know for sure, that no one can know anything for sure. So if you are certain, there must be a problem. If you're certain, you must be on your way to becoming, jihadist, fanaticist, or something. So there's one thing that we should be certain about, that you shouldn't be certain. But in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives us the process to verify everything that he's saying. And according to our intensity in following the process Krishna gives, we can know Krishna and love Krishna. Once we stop blaming Krishna, if you're so good, why are we suffering? Why don't you do something about our suffering? But Krishna is doing everything about our suffering. He's giving knowledge, but we don't want it because we're too busy We have better things to do than to accept knowledge of pleasure that has no beginning or end. This is our situation. Most popular question number 3. What is that? Why does God hate me? He must hate me because I'm having problems and I'm not enjoying all the time. In fact, I'm undergoing atrocious conditions sometimes in my sojourn through material existence. That means God must hate me. But again, once you turn to the bhakti knowledge, once you participate in the bhakti process, you see that we're getting everything. So the question is, why does Krishna care about us so much? Not why does God hate us? Why does Krishna care so much that what? People say that God gives many things. What about the greatest knowledge? It's amazing. Meaning, God gave the sunshine. God sent his representatives. He sent his son. But did God give the greatest, most comprehensive knowledge? That is not well known. Can God give the greatest pleasure? That's not known. Therefore, this Krishna conscious information is so desperately needed. The real problem in the world is not scarcity of, well, it's California, scarcity of water. The real problem in the world is not scarcity of food. Did you know that the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization has calculated that of all the food production in the world, 1/3 is wasted? 1/3. Because either there are faulty distribution methods, or the food is thrown out because it cosmetically doesn't look good for consumers. The greatest shortage is in knowledge. And this Krishna consciousness, global society is dedicated to giving what is most needed. Knowledge of the self, comprehensive, profound, vast knowledge of the spirit self and the supreme self and the relationship between the two. And just think, it's amazing when you list the things that you miss as an individual, that you're lacking. When you list the things that the world is lacking, does knowledge, comprehensive knowledge of the Supreme, ever appear on the list? We need peace, we need money, we need economic equality, we need political freedom, we need ecological sanity, we need comprehensive knowledge of God? In other words, is that going to put gas in your tank? Our bhakti efforts to uplift are all based on giving the greatest gift, knowledge of Krishna. Now, in order to understand how that's true, we have to know what is Krishna. So we talked about the 3 most popular Google questions about God. Who created God? If God is good, why is there suffering? Why does God hate me? Number 4, why does God need so much praise? If he is what he is, then why does he need praise? Just let him do his thing. He lives his life, we live our lives. Why does he need our praise? Does the Supreme have some kind of complex that Krishna requires our constant attention and praise, otherwise he can't function? No. Krishna, the Vedic knowledge, the most comprehensive knowledge of God, describes that Krishna is full in of himself. He doesn't need anything from anyone. Nevertheless, we benefit by glorifying Krishna. It's all for our benefit. He has unlimited desires and the unlimited capacity to fulfill every one of his unlimited desires. So I always ask the question, count how many desires do you have? Try to count. In your mind, just not out loud, but you want this, you want that. It's hard getting up to 10, isn't it? Because our capacity is so limited. Our desires trouble us so much. They burn like fire. They antagonize us. But we don't have really that many. And they're not very much different from, materially speaking, from everyone else's. But to have unlimited desires, can you visualize that? What it's like to have unlimited desires? Then consider the unlimited ability to satisfy unlimited desires. That is God. That is the topmost goal of the yoga and meditation system. Knowing, connecting, relating to that supreme self, that supreme person that has unlimited desires and the unlimited ability to satisfy every one of those unlimited desires. That is Krishna. Therefore, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada made it clear in the beginning of one of his famous books about Krishna. He said, anyone who actually knows what is God will accept Krishna. This is a very profound and liberal statement, magnanimous statement. You can know, he's saying, and if you actually have that knowledge of the science of God, you'll recognize Krishna. It is not a fanatical sectarian statement. It's an invitation. Just like anyone who knows something about geography knows this, we're in the state of California. That means if you don't know, you can get that knowledge. And then you'll recognize we're in California. Why does God need our praise? Krishna needs nothing. He's perfect and complete in himself. But we benefit by praising Krishna. We're part of Krishna, and when we recognize our relationship with Krishna, we benefit. Our problems in material existence are all based on disconnection. So the Bhakti Yoga texts explain to us that we'll never be fulfilled without recognizing the state of disconnection that's plaguing us. We feel that we're on our own. We're like an amputated limb. So the real purpose of the yoga and meditation system is how to bring about reconnection between the tiny particles of spiritual consciousness and the supreme consciousness. You might consider that there must be many people in the world that are making inquiries online about religious subjects. Well, here's some non-sectarian information. Google has told us that yearly they get about 4.7 million inquiries for Jesus Christ and 49 million inquiries for Kim whatever. 49 million versus 4.7. Another fact. When I'm in Silicon Valley, I speak these things, so. It's just a bit up north, so don't mind, please. The word neighbor. When you search on Google for neighbor, the number one search is love thy neighbor as thyself. Now that's reassuring, isn't it? But number two is neighbor porn. Gives you some insight into what's happening with society. If people have knowledge of the Supreme as a supreme enjoyer, they'll become so attracted to that. They won't be able to be victimized by a consumer society. A consumer society works on social comparison. Look around. Others have it. You don't have it. And so you feel insecure. No matter how strong you think you are, you feel insecure. Others are having it. Material happiness exists. Others are getting it. I'm the only one who's not getting it. People become so bewildered in that way that unfortunately they even take their own life because they're so frustrated. There's such assurance, such dogmatic, fanatical assurance that material fulfillment exists. And that madness is what drives us onward. I know it's out there. If I just work harder, I'll get it. If I just jump through this hoop, that hoop, I'll get it. Who is questioning, really, whether material fulfillment actually exists? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna just dispels such an illusion. Krishna explains that one who is actually wise, an educated person, never tries to take part in the temporary happiness of material existence. It comes and goes so quickly. Because it comes and goes, it cannot be considered by pleasure experts as real pleasure. Often, when I'm speaking around the world, I try something out on audiences. I say, I'm going to say something about pleasure, and I'm sure most of you, whether you can catch yourselves or not, are going to start nodding your head. Yeah, that's right. So I present a statement. Somebody said it, I don't know who, and then I watch. I don't expect you to nod your heads, don't worry. So our audience here is pretty enlightened. But usually I catch everyone off guard, even though I've warned them. I'm going to tell you something and you're probably going to nod your head in agreement, unconsciously. What is that statement? The test of true enjoyment is the remembrance that it leaves behind. And I watch. Because we bought into that. Yeah, the test of true enjoyment, the memory that it leaves with us. But the question Krishna asks in Bhagavad Gita is, if it was true enjoyment, why did it go? Therefore, Krishna counsels that the truly wise person does not take part in this so-called pleasure because it has a beginning and end. And because it has a beginning and end, it's actually a source of misery. So then our next question should be, okay, Krishna, you're ripping apart the mass consensual trance. You're ripping apart all our illusions. What do you have better on offer? When we ask that question, our real human life has begun. What's better out there? Is Krishna just a nihilist, a negativist? So brilliantly ripping apart our attempts for just a little bit of happiness? Is Krishna some kind of killjoy? No, Krishna is showing infinite mercy in dispelling the clouds of illusion so that the sun of real knowledge and real happiness can shine. And what is that real knowledge and real happiness? Krishna is saying, come to me. Revive your relationship with me. So then we should say, well, who is this Krishna anyway who's saying, come to me, revive a relationship with me? What's there for me? What's it all about? And the bhakti texts describe in detail what is the highest pleasure. To be in perfect, pure, loving relationship with Krishna, the ultimate source of pleasure. Understanding this is the perfection of the human form of life. If we waste this short human form of life simply on economic affairs, cheap thrills, temporary relationships, this is the greatest disaster. There was one famous atheistic philosopher. No doubt some of you have heard of him, Bertrand Russell. He was adamant about atheism. Someone asked him a question. What if, when you give up your body and there's Judgment Day, and it turns out there is a Supreme, what are you going to say? And he responded, I'll tell him, you gave us insufficient evidence. It's your problem. It's your fault. But I'm justified. I was justified to be an atheist because you gave insufficient evidence. You made yourself hidden. You made yourself so imperceivable. It's all on you. Therefore, I'm correct in my atheism. Even when I'm right there looking at you, I'm still correct to be an atheist because you failed. You gave insufficient evidence. Again, this is why our Krishna Conscious Society is working so hard in a labor of pure love to give the world the greatest spiritual knowledge. The greatest spiritual knowledge means in-depth understanding of what is God, what is the ultimate pleasure, and how to reconnect with that. That is the real purpose of yoga, the real purpose of meditation. If we can use our short human form of life to attain this greatest wealth, this greatest treasure, then we can do the best, not only for ourselves, but for the whole world. Not just the human beings, but all species of life. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna teaches us that we should be concerned with the welfare of all living entities. Seeing that all living entities are equal spiritually, even though their bodily coverings may differ. Someone who is a genuine sage or scholar has that knowledge. He or she is equipped with such knowledge that you see all life forms as equal in terms of the spirit soul inhabiting every living entity's body. Therefore, in a genuine government, it may surprise us to know this, but in a genuine government, the chief executive or head of state is responsible for all living entities, treating them as citizens. This is the kind of vision that the bhakti knowledge equips us with. Then there can truly be peace when we see the equality of all living entities. Therefore, human beings have that topmost responsibility to perfect their consciousness so that human beings can make a proper environment, a proper world for all living entities. This is how great the scope of the bhakti knowledge is. And this is the outcome of the greatest knowledge and the greatest pleasure. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Should we take some questions?
Yes.
Yes.
So, hello. Yeah, if someone hurts us, so can we hurt them back or?
He asked, if someone hurts us, can we hurt them back? Let me ask you, what would you hope to accomplish by hurting them back?
It's kind of revenge, revenge.
Revenge. That means you hope to feel fulfillment by striking back, yes?
Yes.
We do that because we have been fooled into thinking that by trying to fulfill lust and anger, and revenge is anger, we'll feel better, we'll be a better person, the world will be a better place when everyone just does it, just acts on lust, acts on anger. This is a very low-grade existence. I'm sure you don't mean it, you're just asking the question. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, the person who can check the force of desire and anger before giving up the present body can actually be happy in this world and the next. So we may feel such lower impulses, but yoga means to control those lower impulses and act on the higher impulses.
What I meant is in terms of acceptance. Like for example, I'm thinking of the Delhi incident, the bad incident happened to the girl. So in that case, the parent, right, should they seek revenge for that? Could it happen in Delhi?
If the government is sure they have the guilty persons, then the government must take action.
No, not the person, individual person.
The individual person, what can she do? What can her parents do? But in a properly functioning government, such things never happen. But what does life in Kali Yuga, today's age of degradation, mean? Life in Kali Yuga predominantly means exploit women and then deny it. So it is a social problem. It's not that in the barrel there are a few bad apples. No. Who made the barrel that way? Who designed the barrel so that there are rotten apples inside? But it's much easier just to say, oh, ordinary persons aren't like that, even though the number 2 inquiry about neighbors on Google is neighbor porn. But anyway, ordinary persons, they're good. It's just these few bad apples who are doing these things. No, the Krishna conscious person is trained to question, who made a barrel that holds such apples? So yes, in a proper human society, such things should never happen. In other words, there shouldn't be such agitating propaganda through all the media glorifying sensual indulgence. And what about that? Who's going to take action on that? What government's going to stop that? So it is the government's responsibility to make a suitable social atmosphere for the development of higher qualities. All right? Very good question. Yes?
I saw a YouTube video, and Prabhupada was buried. And, I'm new to Krishna's consciousness, and I had seen that in India, a lot of burials are by cremation.
Yes.
I'm just curious, are all Krishna's conscious people?
Everyone hears him. He's got a projective voice.
In ISKCON, what's the belief on burial?
Well, first of all, the number one belief is that the soul is gone. That we're clear about, right? The body is there, but the soul has departed. But in the case of a great devotee, such as Srila Prabhupada, the body is not cremated because that body was 100% spiritualized by being engaged in Krishna's service. Just like you take an iron rod and you put it in fire, the iron rod becomes so hot it can act like fire. So similarly, even the material body, if it's used 100% in Krishna's service, it becomes spiritualized, like spiritual. So therefore the body of such an extraordinary bhakti yogi as Srila Prabhupada is not burned, it is buried. Okay. Again, I thank you for your attention. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj just authored these books. So if anybody would like to get them, then he can actually sign them for you. So one of the